dearly beloved, we are gathered here to join together this man and this woman in holy matrimony.
It was a day that made royal history. It seemed to be the beginning of a new golden era that would bring change to the royal family.
It's a fairy tale beyond fairy tale. We come from really humble stock. My father was a painter and decorator. My mum was an accounts clerk. And their eldest granddaughter was at Westminster Abbey about to marry the future king of this country.
The day the heir to the throne married a commoner, the first such union in over 300 years.
Finally, it can be said that the British monarchy has a queen who wasn't plucked from some foreign shore or from the shires and the aristocracy.
And it was a day that broke with tradition in other ways, one where royalty and A-list celebrities mixed with ordinary folk.
We were just from a little village, miles down the road, and here we are in the Abbey at a royal wedding. Absolutely marvellous, brilliant. In
an era of economic gloom, it was a day that brought a divided nation back together. But the threat of violence was always there.
My fear is there's some kind of Guy Fawkesian plot going on behind locked doors to put a bomb somewhere.
This film tells the inside story of that momentous day, through the memories of those who took part, some speaking for the first time.
And we were going, it's our dress, it's there, and seeing it in the Abbey, even when I'm old and grey, I'll still feel proud of what we did.
We're excited. The future king of England as well. You know, it's a big responsibility, it's a big challenge.
It was a day that united a family, unaware of the future discord that would divide them. The day Will and Kate got married. "1,900 guests are gathering in the traditional splendour of Westminster Abbey for the first royal wedding of the social media age. It's a welcome distraction for a nation blighted by recession, riots, and unpopular government cuts. Foreign VIPs, celebrities, and prime ministers stand shoulder to shoulder with people from the village where Kate grew up.
There were loads of people invited from the village. It was just like any other wedding. We walked around, all chatting, talking to everyone. David Beckham was there. I went up and said hello to him. Big fan.
It was such a buzz. I mean, you was tingling with excitement and happiness and joy. You thought you was dreaming.
And at the centre of it all was a middle class, Middle England, working family.
Wow, it's just unbelievable. My mum would have melted on the spot to have been there. I mean, she would have loved that moment, loved that moment. We were all so proud.
There's a whole big world outside this village, Jenny, and I know nothing of it.
But how did a girl from an English country village land a future king? Perhaps the seeds were sown in a school play years before.
Soon you shall meet a handsome man, a rich gentleman. It is all I ever hoped for. Will he fall in love with me? Indeed he will, and marry me, and marry you.
Raised in the Berkshire village of Bucklebury, Kate was the eldest of 3 children, born to budding entrepreneurs, Carol and Michael Middleton.
Carol and Mike, they're just a normal family. I've seen James, Pippa, and Kate growing up through the years. The Boot was their main pub. They used to come there and have a meal, have a drink, and they mixed with everybody and anybody.
Anywhere your heart desires, only say yes to me. Yes, so yes, dear William.
Marrying a prince called William in Westminster Abbey was something Kate's ambitious grandmother could only have dreamt about. Miner's daughter Dorothy and lorry driver Ron Goldsmith celebrated their wedding in the local pub in their working-class West London neighbourhood. They had 2 children, Kate's mother, Carol, and her younger brother, Gary.
My sister and I, we come from really humble stock. Mum was a bag of fun, a bag of mischief, a bit of a lush. So Mum would get somewhere, be the life and soul, and Dad would always have to drive us home. Dad would work every hour he could to appease Mum, and Mum was very driven and motivated.
Dorothy wanted to move her family up in the world. It earned her a regal nickname.
The Duchess. So my mum was a proper royalist. So we would be at Windsor Castle every given opportunity. I would be on the battlements again. We would be there to sneak a peek at the royals for the polo. Very, very staunch royalist.
Kate's real-life Prince Charming, on the other hand, couldn't have had a more different background. Born 6 months after Kate into the Windsor dynasty.
For William, being in the public eye was part of a way of life. William was very down-to-earth, very considerate. But the Prince and Princess were very keen that the boys grow up as naturally as possible.
Graham Craker had been William's protection officer from the age of 4 and accompanied him to Eton.
At one stage, William wanted to be a policeman. I suppose being a policeman was, at that time, was attractive to him because he was around policemen, myself. But I think he probably realised his future was within the royal family. I don't think it fazed him. He was aware of, his position, and I think he accepted it graciously.
And I don't think it's fanciful to imagine him out on the playing fields of Eton, looking up at Windsor Castle and knowing that that was his destiny.
In 2000, the palace announced William would attend St Andrews University. Kate, meanwhile, had been accepted by Edinburgh, but for unknown reasons, she had a sudden change of plan.
She did reapply to St Andrews, which was quite a risky thing to do because female admissions shot through the roof, with candidates desperate to get to St Andrews because they all wanted to bag a prince. She ended up not only at the same university, but on the same course, in the same halls of residence, and William was a catch.
The two became friends until a student fashion show changed everything.
She had obviously been chosen as a model to walk in the show, and she decided, actually at the last minute, to turn what was meant to be a lace skirt into a dress. Must have taken some guts to get out onto the catwalk, in just your underwear and a see-through dress. William was in the audience, and he turned to one of their mutual friends and said, "Wow, Kate's hot." And it was, I think, like a switch had been flicked. He suddenly saw her in a very different light, and I really believe that that was the turning point in their relationship.
Away from the media spotlight, they started a relationship. But when they were spotted together on a skiing holiday, their secret was revealed.
I had a phone call from Carol to mention there was some press about to land, and just to be aware that Catherine was dating William. And I was in the boardroom. I was sworn to secrecy, but everybody in that board were my best friends, so the first thing you do is tell them. And I just happened to mention that I think I'm going to be uncle to the future queen of the country, of which everything at that point stopped, and I got totally ridiculed. Ha-ha.
Catherine Middleton.
After graduating from St Andrews, their relationship continued to grow.
William Wales.
Helped along by Kate's parents, who welcomed William into the family circle.
The first time I met William was at Carol and Mike's house. The front door was ajar. I just walked straight into the house to see Catherine cooking, William making cups of tea, and Carol, Mike, Pippa and James just mooching around the kitchen with a "Oh, Gary's here," and just hugs and kisses, and then William shaking hands, saying, "Hello."
Here was the family life that he'd never had. His father so preoccupied all the time with his work, no mother, but it's meant that both his sons have turned in other directions for the warmth and family life that they want, and in the case of William, it has been to the Middleton family. So there's a very real sense in which this middle-class family became surrogate parents for him.
They phoned up one day and said, "Could we have 2 tables tonight, please, John?" So that day we had 3 or 4 6'5" guys in jeans walking up our garden and looking all round, and I thought that's a bit strange. As they walked in, I just went up and said, "Oh, hi guys, how are you?" And okay, and Kate said, "Oh, John, just come here. This is William, John, just normal."
Press interest in the relationship was intense. A favourite boat hole, away from the prying lenses, was Uncle Gary's holiday home, the so-called Maison de Bang Bang in Ibiza.
They're out on boats, they've been on beach bars, they've had the full Ibiza experience, and they've had a really good time. My friend was there, who's helping them set up the outdoor DJ. And he was teaching William about the beats and how to drop a track. And he said the most important thing with it is that you do have a shout-out. And you need something that you're going to say when you drop a really good track, what you're going to say to them, what you're going to shout out to the audience. And apparently William's go-to was, "The King's in the house," which I kind of love.
Kate was fast becoming a cover star in her own right. She sought out new designers. One of them was fashionista favourite, Brazilian, Daniela Halile.
My friend said, "Oh, I have this lovely girl that she's dating Prince William, and she loves my Issa dresses. Can she come to your studio?" And I'm like, "Sure, no problem." And that's how we met. She always knew what suited her, what's very nice. She always had her own style.
As press speculation about a royal engagement intensified, Kate became a constant target for the paparazzi. She waited for a proposal, but there was still no sign of one.
It's been said that William was auditioning Catherine for her future role, and I think there's a truth to that. I mean, William was the future king of Britain and the Commonwealth, and like it or not, part of his job was to choose a consort who would do the job well.
Prince William and his long-term girlfriend, Kate Middleton, have split up.
It was William who instigated that split. She wanted a sense of commitment, and at that point in time, William wasn't able to give it to her. But don't underestimate Kate Middleton and her tenacity and her determination. Suddenly, here she is, turning up at William's favourite nightclub in a fabulously short skirt, looking absolutely sensational. And really telling William, "Look what you're missing." And certainly that message wasn't wasted on William, because within a few weeks, they were back together.
But Kate would still have to wait 4 more years to marry her prince. After 7 years of making Kate wait, William finally popped the question.
The enduring image of today will be the future queen wearing the ring made famous by another royal bride, William's mother, Diana.
Kate was wearing a matching blue dress by her favourite designer, Daniela Halile. Just the day before, Kate had dropped into Daniela's studio.
She said that she had a very special lunch the next day, and she was looking for like a blue dress. And I didn't have anything that she liked, but she said, "Oh, I already bought a dress of yours." But I had no idea what was going on.
The news caught everyone by surprise. William had proposed in secret 3 weeks earlier, but he'd only just told his family that morning.
So obviously it's true. Practicing for long enough.
It's wicked.
Kate's father, Mike, had been in on the secret.
I'd just like to say that Carol and I are absolutely delighted by today's announcement.
Carol knows as well as everyone, never tell me a secret. I'm terrible with them. So, yeah, probably hashtag last to know.
And thrilled at the prospect of a wedding sometime next year.
The phone's rung and Carol was just saying, to the news.
We never thought we'd be doing this.
Yeah, she was really excited. I'm really excited.
This was Michael.
But one person was totally oblivious. Daniela was working alone in her Chelsea studio with no television when her phone started ringing.
The phones went mad. For like 2 days, they would not stop ringing. Like, it was crazy. Like, everyone wanted to wear that dress.
Daniela's stock sold out in minutes. The so-called Kate effect on the fashion industry took off. And there was one thing everybody wanted to know.
The royal wedding dress of the century. She was the first royal internet bride. The wedding was going to be watched by billions of people. It had to be traditional, it had to respect the monarchy. And also she had to love it. And obviously she wanted William to love it.
I was working for English National Ballet and I got a call to say there's an exciting job coming in and would I be interested.
Embroiderer Gemma Murray was summoned to the Royal School of Needlework at Hampton Court Palace, where she was presented with a confidentiality document.
On the front of it, it said that it would be for the Duchess of Cambridge, Catherine at the time, and that it was her wedding dress. We didn't know who the designer was, there was no detail like that. So on the outside, I think I was sort of trying to be very calm and collected, but on the inside, I was absolutely fit to burst. It was mind-blowing, really.
Society photographer Hugo Bernand was waiting to hear if their future majesties required his services.
Huddle in, huddle in. Fantastic, thank you. Have a nice day.
He'd been Prince Charles's choice for his wedding 5 years before.
I remember saying, I hope my hat is in the ring for this wedding. I remember saying that. It was a slow process. It wasn't a drum roll moment. It sort of happened. And then one day I looked back and went, oh God, we're doing it. This is us. Team, put your socks up.
William chose Westminster Abbey for their wedding ceremony. It had been the setting for his mother's funeral. The Abbey's world-renowned boys' choir would help provide the music. They weren't normally fazed by royalty until the couple paid a visit.
We were excited. Kate Middleton actually asked me about my opinions on the music. And I think, I was so nervous just meeting her. I wasn't really too sure what to say. And I think I was just starstruck.
But there was one thing they couldn't sing about.
There was a great deal of secrecy about the music at the wedding, and we, as choristers, had to keep that from our families, which was quite exciting, knowing that you knew something very important that you weren't allowed to tell anyone. But yeah, we were very much in our own little bubble here with all of this amazing top-secret information.
The Scotland Yard commander in charge of policing the wedding had bigger concerns. In the winter of 2010, strikes against government cuts and unemployment brought London to a standstill.
These are some of the most testing times British policing has seen in decades.
You had student protests throughout the winter of 2010, and they were running probably every 2 weeks and getting more and more violent. I can remember sitting in my control room, looking at the screens, and I saw a royal car on the camera. And I thought, why are they throwing paint? What's happening? It was the attack on Charles and Camilla on their way to the Palladium. And that was only 4 or 5 months before the wedding. So when we're planning the 2011 wedding, in the back of our minds is this increase in street disorder, this propensity to actually attack the royal family if you have the opportunity. And at the same time, and the thing that must always be borne in mind, is a year later we had the Olympics. So everything we did was always seen against this lens of how are the Met going to cope with the Olympics? And the royal wedding was the next big event.
The royal couple still had some big decisions to make. Out of the blue, luxury cake maker Fiona Cairns got a call, summoning her team to London to meet the bride.
It was surreal. You don't expect to go and have a cup of tea in Clarence's house. And we all sat round the table discussing the wedding. Couple loved fruitcake. They wanted a classic fruitcake, beautifully decorated in a natural style. And so we went away, and I do remember saying at that meeting, this is February, the wedding is the end of April. Could you make your decision sort of sooner rather than later, because there's not much time. It was a bit cheeky, but I did say that. So we waited 3 days. Kishore, my husband, rang me at home, and he said, we have been asked to make the royal wedding cake for William and Catherine. And it still gives me goosebumps now, or 10 years later. I would say that that terror and worry and sleepless nights began at that moment.
All over Britain, wedding fever had taken grip. In late February, gilt-edged wedding invitations from the Queen were sent out. William and Kate had torn up the palace's original guest list and replaced it with their own.
Everyone was sort of speculating who would get invited, who would get invited. Some used to say, John, you'll get invited. Don't be daft, don't get invited.
One day, a mysterious female caller rang John's pub and left a message.
I phoned the number up. She said, oh, hi, John, this is Pippa. I said, oh, hi, Pippa. She said, and I'm even, you know, it's just thinking about it, it was just unbelievable. She said, Kate would like to know if you'd like to go to a wedding. And I said, well, I'm not sure if I can, really. I said, what? Wow, you know, I honestly never expected it.
I got the invitation sent by the Lord Chamberlain, who is commanded by the Queen to invite Sergeant Graham Craker to the wedding. Very pleased to receive that.
Martin was in the shop with the postman, and Martin called me and he said, there's a letter addressed to you there. And I picked it up, and wow, can't tell you. I was almost in, well, I was in tears. I couldn't believe that Martin and I was worthy of an invitation. Wow.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
But the postman who brought the letter, Ryan, also came to the wedding with us.
He got an
He
invitation
had an invitation as well, the postman.
The couple carried out their first official engagement, but speculation was rife about that dress.
Virtually any designer who had ever sort of picked up a needle and thread was at some point approached, are you making the dress? Are you making the dress?
Not even the dress's embroiderer knew who the designer was. And Gemma Murray wasn't allowed to tell anyone what she was doing.
My fiancé had no idea at all. Thankfully, I was getting married at the same time as William and Catherine, so I had that as a good excuse as to why I was suddenly missing. I was at lots of fittings and lots of different wedding shops looking at things.
At her factory in Leicestershire, Fiona Cairns hand-picked 8 of her staff to work on the cake and swore them to secrecy.
We pretended we were making a cake, a display window cake or something. And we had a locked-up room where the team worked. Catherine had said shades of creams and whites, no colour, no glitter, certainly no touches of gold or anything. That was our brief. We were actually sent a piece of lace, and we were asked if we could pipe the lace onto some of the tiers of the cake, which we did.
The lacework that we created for the wedding dress was a unique piece. It contained the 4 motifs for the national flowers. So we had the rose, the shamrock, the thistle and the daffodil representing the national flowers of the United Kingdom. So when you're working in white threads on a white fabric, you need to make sure that everything is really clean. So we were making sure our hands were washed every 30 minutes, all our needles had to be sharp. It had to be the highest workmanship and standard, and it really helped create that one-off bespoke piece of lace for the princess.
1,900 guests would be attending, including many foreign VIPs and heads of state. London was on high terror alert, and the wedding was considered a prime target.
It was Al-Qaeda at the time, having some attempt at a bomb either on the site itself or somewhere else in London. I did feel the pressure. Obviously, it's starting to mount because you've got this huge event, this celebratory event that everybody is pinning a lot of hopes on. You know, it was important for the royal family, particularly William and Harry at the moment. They were the new kids on the block, as it were. It was important for UK PLC, you know, and there you are in charge of the operation thinking, oh no, you know.
Then, Bob Broadhurst had another headache. More violent riots erupted during a TUC march on London. David Cameron's government was beginning to panic.
There were huge concerns, and I remember distinctly briefing the Home Secretary, Theresa May at the time. Her final comments to me were, now, Bob, you will reassure me that nothing will go wrong. It's a bit like a referee in a sports match. If you had a good game, nobody notices the referee. If you have a stinker, you're to blame for everything.
The wedding day was fast approaching, but Gemma Murray still had no idea who was designing the dress. Then one day, she was summoned to an anonymous office block in London.
I didn't really know where I was going. All I knew was that I was going up to sort of carry on doing some tweaks on the dress. And yeah, I was very, very excited, eager, because everybody had been sort of speculating who it may be. It was one of those real sort of 1 in a million moments of sort of walking in, and there was the wedding dress, and there was the designer. To have Sarah Burton of Alexander McQueen stood there, and the royal wedding dress, I think it's the only time I've ever been silent, and I was, yeah, gobsmacked.
A fleet of vans carrying the wedding cake in 40 boxes set off on the 100-mile journey from Fiona Cairns's factory to the bowels of Buckingham Palace. The official wedding photographer, Hugo Bernand, and his team had also moved into the palace. For the next 3 days, they would carry out rehearsals. In the absence of the couple, he roped in the Queen's staff.
We actually did a dress rehearsal with stand-ins from the palace. We'd written cards with everyone's names on them so they knew where they were going to have to sit. We did that on a stopwatch so we could time it. That's how we knew we needed 33 minutes. And they came back and said, you can have 29. I was like, oh, no.
The day before the big event, central London is already beginning to swell with the first of the crowds that will fill the streets tomorrow.
At Buckingham Palace, Fiona Cairns and her team were feeling the pressure.
I was told that Her Majesty would be coming through the door at the top of the picture gallery to chat at midday. So no pressure, of course, never having built this cake. When the Queen came to see us, the cake wasn't completely finished. I can remember her saying, I hear that you've been dismantling my house. And I said to her, well, we had to take a door down from the room below for the trolley to go through with the cake. But it was all put back, so in the end, so it was fine.
While Kate spent her last day as a single woman at the Royal's favourite hotel, the Goring, across London, Scotland Yard carried out a series of raids and arrested 20 people.
I was certainly worried when we learned that there were 2 or 3 squats around London, were known anarchists. We knew they were capable of high-end violence, high-end, damage to property. Would they draw the line at attacking a royal car? We don't know. You had a lot of stuff on social media about coming and disrupting the wedding. People were going to come dressed as zombies for alternative weddings. You know, throw maggots, not confetti, throw paint and this, that and the other. Your fear, my fear, is there's some kind of Guy Fawkesian plot going on behind locked doors to actually, potentially, yeah, put a bomb somewhere.
The day dawned bright and sunny. The Metropolitan Police mounted one of the biggest security operations in its history, deploying 5,000 officers at a cost of nearly £6.5 million. 1 million people had poured onto the wedding route in central London.
There just is not the way that you can search that many people. The real threat was from the odd individual who gets through, the fixated people who, for whatever reason, are obsessed with the royal family, who might just sneak under your guard.
At Westminster Abbey, 1,900 guests were arriving for the wedding of the decade.
You could hear the crowd.
The crowds
and
were
wow,
just
that was electric.
Screaming electric, and you just put your hand up or do something like that, and everybody roared and clapped. And...
One of the people I was chatting to was a chap from Clarence House. In we went.
We were kind of in awe, if I'm brutally honest. I like to think I don't get nervous, but that day, everything went out the window. The butterflies were going. We were just watching. And still, it was just the excitement. It was in the air.
When it was time to sit down, I was in the third row back. All the front seats were reserved for dignitaries. And I see this gentleman there, and he see me, he said, John, he said, come down here. He said, this seat isn't reserved. I said, yeah, come down. So there I went, and I sat in the front row, and wow, you know, when Carol walked through, she looked at me, and afterwards, funny enough, she said, John, how did you get in the front seat?
It was everything that my mum would have dreamt of. Yeah, I never expected to be at the Abbey for a royal wedding, and it was one of their family. That was a moment.
Also there was former Royal Protection Officer Graham Craker. He'd been with the princes on the night their mother died and accompanied her coffin to Orthor. It was his first time back in the Abbey since the princess's funeral.
I personally felt that the spirit of the princess was with us on that day. She would have been very proud of her two sons and the fact that William was marrying such a lovely person.
It was time for the groom and his best man, Brother Harry, to set off for the Abbey.
And they came in through the door, and you could feel the atmosphere lighten. Those two young princes walking down the aisle with William about to get married. And yeah, I felt quite proud that I'd been part of the scene, as it were, that saw him through his younger life.
They were the sons that we had seen grow up without a mother, who'd walked behind her coffin. That memory was sort of very much etched on the nation's heart and in its memory. They were incredibly popular.
The wedding of William and Kate really completed a dramatic turnaround that the monarchy had made since the dark days of the 1990s, the Annus Horribilis, the death of Diana. The rebirth of the monarchy did literally happen through these two boys, and William's love and marriage to Kate was part of that.
Everyone was eagerly awaiting the bride. Just across the river from the Abbey, in Scotland Yard's control room, Bob Broadhurst was happily doing his crossword. But something on one of the computer screens caught his eye.
We had a secure zone around the Goring Hotel. Don't know how it happened, and I don't really want to know how it happened to this day, but somebody in a car got through the secure zone, drove up close to the Goring, just around the corner, got out the car and legged it and joined the crowd. Now we have a real problem. This is a potential bomb in a car. It's so close to the entrance and exit from the Goring that we probably might not be able to get Kate and her party out on time. It was 15, 20 minutes before her due departure time. All the while, the clock is now ticking. And at that very moment, the door opened and in came my boss with a party of dignitaries from the International Olympic Committee, showing them how the Met works in a crisis. So you could cut the silence with a knife as we're trying to solve this issue. And then a little voice from the corner, one of the tactical advisors, let's put it that way, says, "Here, Governor, I hear Paddy Power offering 10,000 to 1. She doesn't make the church on time. Do you want me to put some money on?" That kind of broke the ice, at which time our explosives officers had turned up. It wasn't a bomb. And we were able to not only downgrade the threat, but also say, stick with plan A, let's go for it and get her out. I think that poor individual, who was at the end of the day just a tourist, came back to find a car with no doors or windows and a parking ticket.
Unaware of the last-minute hitch, Kate finally emerged from the Goring, her dress still hidden. This was the first royal wedding of the social media age. Internet records were broken as millions took to Twitter, Instagram, and the royal family's own YouTube channel to follow the ceremony. Close to 2 billion people across the world were watching.
My fiancé knows I'm a big fan of William and Catherine, and I do like the royal family, so he wasn't surprised when I said I wanted to watch the royal wedding.
At last, the dress was revealed.
I gasped when I saw it because I was looking at a fairy tale come to life. The beautiful princess, and she's wearing a dress designed by Alexander McQueen.
Sort of turned to him and said, "So that lovely dress there." I said, what do you think? And he said it was very nice. And I said, "Well, that's good because I've been working on that." I think he was quite surprised that I'd been able to keep my mouth shut.
When I saw Catherine coming down the aisle and I saw her dress, which was absolutely stunning, wasn't it? And I saw the lace, I remember thinking, I recognise that.
It took Kate 3 minutes to walk down the aisle with her proud father Mike, followed by her sister Pippa. The middle-class girl from Berkshire would leave the Abbey a future queen.
I was beaming with pride. That was our little Kate, with Mike walking in front of all of those people, walking with her father up to William.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here in the sight of God and in the face of this congregation to join together this man and this woman in holy matrimony.
For me, it was just, oh my God, this is real. No, this is actually happening.
I pronounce that they be man and wife together in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Ghost. Amen.
Just that morning, the Queen had conferred new titles on the newlyweds. They would now be known as the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. It was time for one of their favourite pieces of music, the Ubi Caritas et Amor.
At the end of this piece, there is a solo line for a treble to sing. And I was informed about a few days before the service that I would be singing this line. I think when it came to the time to sing on my own, I definitely knew that I was singing on my own.
He did incredibly well. Not everybody can stay, you know. They had the opportunity to sing at a royal wedding. So yeah, incredibly proud and grateful for the opportunity.
So she came in with her dad, and of course she walked out with her husband. And I was watching to the left, watching her going out the door. Then all of a sudden I got a sense of everyone looking to the right. Everyone, literally everyone, and I was just looking to the left. And as I looked round, there was the Queen staring at me, I don't know, 4 or 5 feet away, because everyone was bowing their head and I was the only one looking left, and I'm sorry, ma'am.
This was a giant leap for the monarchy. This was the monarchy approving a modern union. It was hugely significant, not just for the royal family, but for Britain, for the country.
When they arrived back, there were slightly more well-wishers within the palace than I think anyone had catered for, which delayed them by 3 minutes. And those 3 minutes, when I'd wanted 33, then I was given 29, had now been cut down to 26. I was pretty nervous. So there were 3 photographs which they released. But this was the photograph that I'd always wanted to take. We had 3 minutes spare at the end of the official photographs. And we looked around at all the people who were looking at their watches, and then we decided just to get on and do it. And Catherine sat down and Sarah Burton put the dress out perfectly. I mean, I don't know how she did it so quickly. It just was a moment. We got it, and then there was just enough time to get up and get out the balcony and then for the flight past. So it's not like we didn't have any major deadlines.
Then, the moment the crowds had been waiting for. Another break with tradition. Not just 1, but 2 kisses. After one final wave to the crowds, the family celebrations could begin.
Prince Charles did a great speech. He was taking the mick out of Prince William, talking about him driving a toy car into the tree repeatedly, and was very gushing about Catherine. I was nervous, thinking of Catherine marrying into the royal family. One doesn't know if she would thrive or survive. But from the moment that Prince Charles spoke, it was obvious that she was being welcomed with open arms and with love. So I knew she'd be safe, yeah.
"10 years on and 3 children later, the atmosphere inside the firm has turned toxic. Following Harry and Meghan's exit from public life in Britain, the royal family has faced its worst crisis since the death of Diana.
William and Harry, for many years, had an incredibly close relationship. You know, this unbreakable bond between two brothers who lost their mother. But when Harry met the one, he couldn't live in the shadow of the Cambridges for any longer.
The conflict between William and Harry will be resolved in one way or another. In a sense, life for William and Catherine became more simple when Harry and Meghan just moved out of the picture and there was no competition anymore, or no confusion about who were the star couple. But the challenge of that is that they are now the star couple and the only couple.
Kate was born for that role. Born to humble stock, but totally at home in that role. I think Kate and William smash it. They're right for the country, and I think that's why we love them.